I think that the right embracing a sense of Hindu identity and nationalism in India. I don't say this with any sort of judgment. I just think that is what they openly want.
Yeah.
I don't see anything on the face wrong with a country wanting that if it was, say, democratically decided. But I may personally think that we should be in a secular country.
So that's where I disagree with you. The concept of Hindu nationalism is fundamentally at odds with the Indian constitution.
Are we more democratic or are we more secular? Welcome everyone to another episode of the Overcorrection. Today we are in studio with Mr. Nickil Chopra. He is a student pursuing his master's in public policy at the Harvard Kennedy School. He has worked a lot in social developmental politics, civic awareness before he went there. What if suddenly 80% of the people just vote, we want to be a Hindu country?
People often talk about everyone, wants Hindu nationalism and is against secularism. And they say that both Modi has won 3 terms, which is why this is happening. That's fundamentally not true. India has roughly 80% Hindus. BJP's vote share is roughly 35%, which means that for roughly every one Hindu that votes for BJP, there's one Hindu who's voting against BJP. Secondly, Hindu nationalism, in my opinion, does go contrary to the spirit of India. India was never meant to be created as a country based on religion.
That's why we had Pakistan.
That's why you had Pakistan. And you've already seen how Pakistan has sort of turned out.
One day I wonder, when you see so much inequality around you, when you see multi-crore apartments which people live in where they make Swiggy orders and and the watchman receiving the parcel, 3,000 rupees is like 1.5 months ration for their family of 4. And you just ordered like a croissant and no one thinks it's going to happen to them. The people around the Arab Spring didn't think it was going to happen to them.
Income inequality is a huge issue. I think wealth tax is a rubbish solution. The problem with the wealth tax is...
Welcome everyone to another episode of the Overcorrection. Today we are in studio with Mr. Nickil Chopra. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
He is a student pursuing his master's in public policy at the Harvard Kennedy School. He has worked a lot in social developmental politics, civic awareness before he went there. That being said, I did want to first start at the Harvard part and not in the douchey way most people talk about Harvard. Harvard was a hotbed for controversy last year.
Yes.
Right? Involved in the whole Trump presidency and the free speech measures that were imposed. So why don't you give some backdrop as to what that whole thing was and how it was for you there as a student, as much as you feel comfortable saying?
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much for having me on. It was tough. I think I got my admission decision in March. Extremely happy, of course. And in April and May is when President Trump had started a sort of fight with Harvard as well as with other elite universities across the US. And there was a period of time where he had essentially barred Harvard from enrolling in national students. So we had a WhatsApp group with all of these international students from across the world. And every single day we were, literally checking the news to sort of see what the new policy was, whether we'd sort of get our visas. And as you can imagine, for everyone across the world, this getting into Harvard because of just the way society is a big deal for us. It's like, I've worked very hard. Everyone has worked really hard. So it's like once you get this opportunity after years of working hard, you don't want to let it go. But I think since we've gotten there, which is in August, things have sort of settled down. Harvard has kind of reached an understanding settlement with Trump. The sort of courts have settled a lot of the cases. So since then, it's been much better, and we haven't spoken about it since. But yeah, that's been the intro.
So now after Harvard has reached this settlement with Trump, when was that reached, and what did you notice after that, if anything?
Yeah, I think luckily, so there were multiple cases that sort of happened, and there have been settlements even till now. Essentially, the Trump administration withheld a lot of funding, and there were different avenues through which they were trying to sort of get the university to sort of accede to all of its demands. I think also to contextualize all of this is in the aftermath of the sort of Gaza Israel protests on campus, which are violent across the US in 2024, even before Trump got elected. And I think a lot of the sort of moves that the administration made was in reaction to that, or at least using that as a justification. And I think you sort of look at two models. You look at Columbia University and Harvard. Columbia University caved in instantly. And what you had was an environment where the students on campus were protesting against professors, protesting against the dean. It was sort of really, really negative environment. I think Harvard, all the students, everyone appreciated that Harvard was taking a stance, which meant that while there was a conflict externally, internally the entire ecosystem was united. It was almost like, irrespective of, we even had conservative professors on campus speaking out and identifying that anti-Semitism has been a problem and needs to be addressed, but speaking out in support of Harvard's president. So I think on campus, the environment, luckily for us, has been very unified. We haven't felt too much negativity, but also broadly, it's also not been spoken about. Okay. I think we know what's happening, but there's an environment where, for some reason, people are just not talking about it.
So I think now we've got a good idea of what your background is, and I think now we can just jump into some hardcore politics. Let's start abroad. I'd say the biggest thing, at least even in Mumbai, was Mamdani's election. Even though it shouldn't have been. We celebrated more. People don't know that we are actually going to be, in some ways, electing Mumbai's mayor a few days from now.
Soon,
January 15th is the date.
Please go vote.
Please go vote,
yeah.
I think that's the first lesson in politics school.
Yes.
I know
politics
that one.
School, yeah.
So, but let's talk about it, And I don't mean to belittle this idea that Mamdani's gotten elected and that we should not care about US politics here. I think it's a harbinger for things to come very often. So let's talk about it. What did you feel?
I think generally about Mamdani is one thing is it's obvious is he knows how to use social media. He's young, he talks well, and he had insane message discipline, right? So I mean, having worked as a political operator, those are things I can really admire, that they had a great social media campaign. I think his policies leave a lot to be desired. And a lot of the policies, even from people who liked him there, they thought his policies were a little absurd. A lot of them, whether it be rent controls,
supermarkets. I know he got a lot of shit for the supermarkets.
Yeah. To be honest, in India we do have
Sarkari Bandhan.
Yeah, exactly, and it does work to some extent. But yeah, I think we will need to see how that sort of pans out.
Has it been panning out yet? Shouldn't something have panned out by now?
No. So he was elected like on the 1st of Jan.
That's when he was in office.
Yes. As he was sworn in on the 1st of Jan. So there's still time to sort of see how that pans out. But India does not need a Zohran Mamdani.
Okay.
And India will never have a Zohran Mamdani.
It's not Anish Gawande.
No, Anish is a dear friend, and I've worked with him as well. No, and I know
I've seen the clips that went around. So I'm just joking around.
No, of course, yeah. And the reason I say that is because fundamentally, American society, Indian society, American politics, Indian politics is extremely different. Okay. We do not have a presidential form, right? So a lot of the times, you have commentators say that, why, the mayor of New York City, do you know the mayor of Mumbai? No, you're not supposed to know the mayor of Mumbai. Just like a lot of people don't know the president of India, right? Because we have a parliamentary form of election. And yes, while elections in India are becoming increasingly presidential in terms of increasingly,
one man dominated.
Correct. Who's at the top of the ticket? In India, you always elect your local representative, you elect your MP, and then the MPs together elect the sort of prime minister.
So on that note, I remember that when Zohran Mamdani's election was going on, people were referring to a friend of the show and I think a friend of yours as well, Anish. Anish Gawande. And I really wanted to talk to you as a political analyst to try to get your opinion on why Anish has got such a storm in politics. I know he's a breath of fresh air. I have my own personal views on why I think he's such a good thing right now for our political discourse. What do you think he's doing special that is separating him from people?
Yeah, he's a close friend, of course. Love his work. The reason why he's so impressive is not necessarily because he's extremely powerful in politics right now. He isn't. He's starting off his career. But it's just the fact that as a young person, where he's been able to reach. In India, if you don't know anyone in politics, if your family is not already in politics, it's really, really hard to sort of get in. Even if, let's say your father has been an MLA, you still have in every party, you have like 20, 40, fathers who have all been politicians who are looking for tickets for their sons for like 1, 2, 3 seats. So, when I was at Harvard, this was interesting because, we have people who've worked in politics, started political parties in Latin America, in Europe, and all of them want to go back and actually run for office. A lot of them want to, even in the US. And they often have asked me, do you want to run for office in India? And I'm just like, that's absurd. I don't think I could ever run for office, even if I wanted to. Because unfortunately, if you have a young person here in India, you can't. You will never get a ticket. You either go down Prime Minister Narendra Modi's route, which is you work as a grassroots volunteer from the time you're 15, 16, rise up the ranks, you work for 40 years, you work your ass off. And then you sort of get a chance to sort of get
become
these tickets.
CEO,
right?
Like...
But then also, what person who is educated, who after getting a degree can graduate and get a 15 lakh salary? Why would you want to work for a political party as a volunteer for 20 years, not earn anything, lead a really, really rough life, and you might or might not get a ticket, right? You even look at in the Congress right now, right? There are insanely successful people who are 40, 50, 60s. They have absolutely no say in power, in politics at all, because it's all centralized by one family. And while that is at the national level, it's the same in a city level, state level. It's just different families who are in charge, different sort of
I think
nexuses.
Right now there's this whole there's a reports coming out as to how many of the people standing right now for Maharashtra civic body elections are all related to MLAs. Like everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a big club and you are not in it.
Exactly. And nepotism is not a Congress BJP issue, even though the Prime Minister loves to make it that. There's equal nepotism on either side. What's also interesting is even if you have wealth, it still doesn't mean that you have you obviously have some benefit, some advantage. It still doesn't mean that it still doesn't guarantee you an in into politics. Which is why what Anish has done is so rare.
It's the same as Bollywood, right?
Yeah, because he is. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
I think someone on the show once said, I think Rishabh Shah, the Ayman founder.
Yeah.
He's like, that's why he said every neta is an abhineta, but not every abhineta is a neta. Which I think translates to every politician is an actor, but not every actor is a politician.
Yes.
But it's just interesting, like the weird parallels we have in politics and Bollywood.
I would say it's easier to get into Bollywood than into politics. Because you still have enough case studies of sort of people making it when they're 29, 30. And I think that's what makes Anish stand out is his age, right? He is 29. From out of nowhere, from a career in activism, Rhodes Scholar, he's been able to get in and sort of make a path where he's now a sort of voice for young urban India. And I think the reason he's successful and even similar to Zohran is because you don't have anyone speaking, making sense on TV today.
I think that's why people like watching him on TV. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, exactly.
Did he just quote a statistic?
Yeah, like, exactly. Yeah.
And it's kind of, I think people are going to have to up their game. Who is BJP's Anish Gawande to you?
BJP doesn't need Anish Gawande.
Okay.
You
really think?
The opposition right now has no one and nothing, to be very honest. Just think about it, okay? Anish Gawande represents the NCP SP, right? They are almost today irrelevant politically. They hold a handful of seats in the only state in which they were once relevant.
Okay.
Right? Their party has been split. Why should a spokesperson of a party which has a handful of seats both in Lok Sabha and in the state legislative be on national debates? Why do people know him? He's irrelevant. His position is irrelevant. And the reason is because there's no one else. The BJP is in power in most states. The BJP has a competent leadership. The BJP knows how to run elections.
They should have individual people in each state voicing thing, but Anish is having to be the sole person to...
Anish stands out because there's no one else.
At least in English.
Yes.
In the English-speaking context.
Yes.
But I do feel he's almost a stand-in for the... Even on a state or a national level, he is voicing the opinions that the opposition should be voicing.
Exactly. And that's my point. Why should a random small party with 5-6 seats, their spokesperson be talking about representing national issues and people are listening to him? It shows that there's such a dearth of talent, of political talent or credibility.
And this is no taking away from Anish. It's speaking to the state of the opposition. Thank God he's there, that someone is doing it.
Exactly, yeah. But the whole point was BJP doesn't need that. They are in power everywhere. They don't need and also it is also much easier being in the opposition. It's very easy to sit when you're not in power and be like, you're doing this wrong and you're doing this wrong. That's an easy job. The hard job is being in power and defending all the policies that you actually implement.
Okay, are there any other politicians you would like, Indian politicians, young, who you think that need to be paid more attention to? Who should we look at? People who maybe don't have as strong social media presence as Anish. Who are the voices that need to be heard? If there need to be more, are there any, or are they so under the radar that they're just...
So in India, there are two tiers, right, when you look at politics. One is national politics and national issues, which is what, all the major news studios, especially English news, is in Delhi. They'll cover that. Real work doesn't often happen there. Right?
Okay.
If you look at what is the power of an MP today from an opposition party if you're in parliament, a lot of people think that they're very powerful. I've actually worked with MPs as policy aides. They're really not that powerful. There's very little they can do. If you look at the tools that an MP today has, right? You can give a great speech. It's true. You can give a great speech on a topic and maybe that'll get some headlines.
And it'll only get headlines as a clip on, like if a clip goes viral.
Correct. Exactly. You can give interviews after you've given that speech. You can raise questions during question hour. You can table a private member bill. Private member bills are almost never passed.
Okay.
So that's never going to be passed. It's essentially simply just to sort of start a conversation. And then MPs are often on parliamentary committees. Under this government, parliamentary committees are useless because any bills that the government tables technically it's supposed to go in front of a parliamentary committee, which is formed of MPs from different parties.
Okay.
They sort of analyze the policy, suggest changes, it goes back to the government, and that's how you sort of have democratically prepared, well-structured policies.
Is this a law or is this how things have been done?
There is a legal provision that parliamentary committees are supposed to be structured. They're supposed to meet.
And do they have to have a balance of opposition and...
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, this government from 2014 has totally steamrolled it, which means that the opposition, the point is that opposition MPs just don't have too much power, which is why you see them just standing up and walking out all the time. Because they're irrelevant. The government doesn't need their votes to pass any of the bills. They haven't, which is unlike in the US. So my point was that that's one level at which politics is played, which is the national level, which is more in the media eye. What's more important is what's happening at the local and the state levels, right? And there you have a lot of young politicians who are well known in their sort of local areas, in their states, in their cities, but they often speak in sort of regional languages. They're covered by regional media.
As they should.
Yeah,
I'm just messing around.
Exactly. No. Generally, two blokes here sitting in English, right? English is spoken by a minority of the country. So when it comes to are there other young politicians, there are a ton of them everywhere. It's just that they don't speak English. They might not be on social media, but they're doing real work on the ground. And I think that's where a lot of investment needs to go for political parties.
What do you make of some of the key figureheads in the Indian right-leaning movement? If I had to look at who on the right is appealing to, say, a similar demographic as who Anish is appealing to, I mean, even though these are very contrary views, when I talk, even though they are very contrary, people is Jai Sai Deepak. I remember he also commented himself on how his rise to popularity was largely because he spoke in English and really good, polished English.
Yeah.
And he's promoting, I would say, a more right-leaning ideology.
Yeah.
What is your take on that whole movement that started, the whole Indic right phenomenon that I'd say started 2016, 17 onwards and really picked up steam in lockdown?
Yeah, you even have, Tejasvi Surya is another one who's English speaking, young,
Yes.
from the BJP. In general, there's been a sort of movement towards the right globally.
Globally.
And this is not only limited to sort of India. And I think in line with the name of the podcast, right, Overcorrection, there has been a sort of overcorrection where I think the cultural pendulum has shifted to the right. I think from 2002-3 to 2015, there were different blows to left-wing liberalism, liberal politics. You obviously had the sort of 2008 financial crisis, which was a result of unbridled capitalism.
Yes.
But it was the embrace of that unbridled capitalism by the left that in many ways saw people find them culpable for that. In India, of course, you had a left-wing government, the sort of UPA, who had multiple corruption scandals. You have had a lot of left-wing politics switch from economics to social and cultural issues.
Yes.
And I think that has been one of the reasons why I feel like we have seen the rise of the right, because the left's strongest issue has always been economics, right? If you look at labor movements across the world, is what led to the start of left-wing parties, right? So you have the sort of Labour Party in the UK. It's essentially this thing that workers' rights matter.
Did left politics shift then, as you're saying, from labor and economics focus to now like culture focused?
Yes, and that is to the detriment of the left-wing movement.
Yeah.
Right?
In India, actually, don't they say that both our parties, right and left, are economically left on everything?
Very similar.
So, which is what I kind of wanted to ask you on this one
Yeah.
trade, because the part I see, like, chalo, if you want to, whenever says I support right, I support left, they're basically saying one thing. I think that the right, or the speakers on the right, are embracing a sense of Hindu identity and nationalism in India. I don't say this with any sort of judgment. I just think that is what they openly want.
Yeah.
I don't see anything on the face wrong with a country wanting that if it was, say, democratically decided. But I may personally think that we should be in a secular country.
Right.
What I have found is that there's a lot of people who had no religion, no care for their own religion.
Right.
And just with some social media storm have started reclaiming their religion without really paying attention to any, I'd say, of the actual spiritual elements of that religion.
Right. So there are two things happening here, right? Who if you observe, who are these same people who were not religious but are now finding comfort in this right-wing nationalism? It is young men. And this is young men from majoritarian parts of society who have for decades, yes, they have, and I hate to talk in like elite liberal university code speak, but they have enjoyed certain privileges and certain advantages in power structures. And with time in the last 15-20 years, a lot of these conversations about equality have come to the front. And they have lost some of that power. What the left has gotten wrong is in its attempt to further social equity, it has started to, at times, marginalize men.
Okay.
This is really, really controversial. That sort of my...
And Hindu men? I'd say
in India, it would be Hindu men.
In America, it's Christian men.
White men, yes.
White Christian men.
And this is not me saying that this is justifiable or that this is right. I'm just saying that this is the truth in terms of it is a fact that these people feel marginalized. I'm not making a value judgment of whether they should feel marginalized or do not. But they do.
Yeah.
And that has led to this sort of counter-revolution against gender equality, against racial equity there, against secularism
Religious
here,
harmony.
where a lot of rights that we rightly achieved in the sphere of education or religion or gender or race is now being rolled back, right? Because there is an overcorrection, there is this counter revolution that's sort of taking place. So I think that's one.
The other one I wanted, so on this note, I think we have to talk about one of my favorite subjects in Indian politics, the UCC. Why don't we have one yet? The most obvious way I thought you start governing a country.
Yeah, so I think on this topic, and even related to something you said earlier, which was there is this rise of Hindu nationalism, and if the country wants it, then it's okay to, why not?
Isn't that democracy? So
that's where I disagree with you.
Okay.
The concept of Hindu nationalism is fundamentally at odds with the Indian constitution. It is not the way the Indian framers framed the constitution, and any democracy is run based on its constitution.
Are we more democratic or are we more secular?
But that's a false comparison. Like, those are not two things that are...
They are not necessarily mutually exclusive, in the sense that I could vote to be in a secular... Like, we could majority vote to remain secular. But what if suddenly 80% of the people just vote, we want to be a Hindu country?
Okay, so technically, that can happen. Constitutional amendments need a two-thirds majority to sort of pass. There's a huge burden in terms of if you want to change certain parts of the constitution with regards to fundamental rights, fundamental provisions like secularism, you need very large majorities. That is not going to happen anytime soon, and it's never going to happen. Right now, if you look at BJP's vote share, it hovers in the 30s. This is at their peak. This is something that Prashant Kishore often says when people often talk about there's this rise of Hindu nationalism in India, and everyone wants Hindu nationalism and is against secularism. And they say that Modi has won 3 terms, which is why this is happening. That's fundamentally not true.
It's coalition
right? Even if you do the sort of math, India has roughly 80% Hindus, right? BJP's vote share is roughly 35%, which means that for roughly every one Hindu that votes for BJP, there's one Hindu who's voting against BJP.
Almost 1.5.
Yeah, so it's not even that all Hindus are sort of ascribing to that ideology, right? So that is one. Secondly, Hindu nationalism, in my opinion, does go contrary to the spirit of India. India was never meant to be created as a country based on religion. That's how you had Pakistan.
That's why we had Pakistan.
That's why you had Pakistan. And you've already seen how Pakistan has sort of turned out, as the Hindu nationalists love to sort of point out. So I do think it's a problem. It is a real clash today in Indian politics, and it's also driving this debate of UCC. I'm not going to say that the Congress or the left has not leveraged religion ever. They have. Right? They have their own vote bank, which for a long time has been the Muslim community. The term Muslim appeasement politics is real, and it's been used for a reason.
Fight fire with fire types? I mean, what is politics, right? It's like, what are you going to do?
Sure. In certain ways, I mean, maybe more so during Rajiv Gandhi's time, and, there were a lot of sort of steps which could have been looked at as missteps.
So back to the UCC, in principle, isn't it foundational to like when you said India fundamentally was not meant to be any type of religious nationalistic state? That's why we have India and Pakistan is Pakistan. Shouldn't that come with a UCC if we don't have any specific religious laws? Or do you think there's a balance between having a secular state that allows individuals to be governed by different laws based on the religion they identify? We could technically vote for that as well.
So, to be very honest, I don't have a strong opinion on UCC either way. What I will say is about UCC is it comes to freedom, right? It's essentially, so even way back when the Constitution was written, the framers had a debate of whether it should be UCC or whether there should be a provision that allows for sort of separate laws. the UCC failed by 5-4. So this was that close even when the constitution was sort of being written, right? And it came down to the fact that should a majority impose its moral views and laws on people of all religions. So if people of, let's say, the Muslim community has certain laws for themselves just based on their own morality, shouldn't you have the freedom to choose how you're governed and how your religion influences your life decisions? And I think that freedom of religion is where it comes. There is, of course, the other end where is the support for UCC essentially says that what if this freedom of religion infringes on
someone else?
What if it infringes on equality, right? So a lot of these laws, let's say, tend to be anti-women, or they can be.
No, it absolutely can infringe on other people's rights. And, to me, I think we can just, end this discussion on the UCC now and talk about the other thing we want to get into while we have time, which is taxes. But I just feel it's kind of a no-brainer to have a UCC, especially in a country which we say is secular. And I don't see this as having a uniform Hindu code for all non-Hindus in this country. I don't see that as being the natural end of saying we have a UCC. But I know a lot of people actually are concerned about that. And, maybe that is a valid concern. But anyways, we're not going to solve this now. Let's just move on to one other topic I wanted to get your inputs on, which is something that is a bit of an imported idea. It's something that's very prevalent in the UK and in the social discourse in the US. Indian politics has flirted with it and quickly, kind of backed off. But that's the big solution for inequality, the wealth tax.
Yeah.
Or the inheritance tax.
Yeah.
Or even taxing high income people.
Yeah.
And I would like to point out that these are 3 different types of taxing the rich.
Yeah.
Taxing income is different from taxing wealth, which is different from taxing inheritance.
Yeah.
And I do think that a lot of the time when we talk about increasing taxes to combat inequality, people confuse this.
Yeah.
You'll say to someone who's, say, a high income earner in a corporate company, maybe they're earning $1 million a year. They're like, oh, how can you put on a inheritance tax or wealth tax? It's like, hey, listen, you would be more penalized on higher income tax. If you don't have, say, generational wealth sitting and accruing in your thing, wealth tax may not hit you as hard as you think.
Yeah.
So people get this nomenclature a bit confused. But I actually am a bit sympathetic to this idea that, listen, the rich can't keep getting richer and richer, not from some altruistic way, but I just sometimes think that, man, they're going to riot.
Yeah.
They'll riot and the revolution will come. So we can get to the revolution part, but you tell me, how has it been? What's the wealth tax debate going on in the US like?
Very interesting. Right. I mean, there's this figure called Bernie Sanders in the US.
Of course.
I loved him. I still love him. Huge fan. One of the things that he proposed, Elizabeth Warren, a senator, also proposed was the concept of wealth tax, where
the Native American.
Yes.
I got my facts straight.
Yeah. Well, the sort of whole concept is, eat the rich, tax the rich, and the whole framing is all we're asking you is for every dollar you've earned, pay just 2 cents, right? Just 2%, just 2 cents of your wealth, so that we can fund, all of these social programs. Let me start off by saying that income inequality is a huge issue. I think wealth tax is a rubbish solution. And it's really, really unfortunate how, whether it be really smart people from AOC to Warren to Bernie Sanders have sort of adopted it. We've had not so smart people like Sam Pitroda who have sort of taken inspiration and sort of, said that even in India we should sort of get it implemented and put Congress into big trouble in the 2024 elections. The issue with the wealth tax, so there are multiple issues with the wealth tax. Okay. And it's something I debated a lot with my professor, Jeffrey Liebman, who was one of the chief economic advisors for President Obama. And his work has focused a lot on how do you actually reduce income inequality, and look at these different types of tax. The the problem with the wealth tax is how do you quantify wealth? So let me give you an example. If I'm a founder, right? Let's say I have started from scratch a $1 billion company, right? What is the problem in the US? The problem in the US is I now have a $1 billion company. I own stocks. That's where my wealth comes from. And I can use that as collateral to essentially take loans and basically live the rest of my life on that money. The problem is that that amount is never taxed. Let's say I die. And once I die, let's say that 2 billion in sort of shares will go to my son. And he will not get taxed on that 2 billion. Even if he sells it, for example, you're not paying any capital gains tax. Because if my investment grew from 1 million to 2 billion, once I die, that sort of capital gain of 1.99 billion on that amount actually doesn't exist in the US.
It gets written off?
It gets written off. So
I don't think that's the case in India. I think in India you have to pay 12.5%.
Yes, in India it is not the case.
So we have more inheritance tax right now than the US in this situation?
Correct. It's not inheritance tax, it's a capital gains tax. Right? So essentially,
sure. It's if you sell the thing,
essentially the value of the company, which started at 1 million, for example, and increased to 2 billion, that gain is taxed whenever it is sold, even if it is sold by a offspring or by a son. In the US,
India?
yes, in the US it's not.
Wow.
So hypothetically, that entire amount goes off, right? And to solve this problem, what they basically say, right, and therefore you have these analogies, right, that, oh, I am a teacher and a teacher pays like X percent in taxes, whereas this billionaire has 2 billion in wealth and pays 0 taxes. It's basically this that they're talking about.
Yes. Which is a problem. I must admit
now,
it's a problem.
100% is a problem.
And I assume people are also, especially given the fact that this 12.5% capital gains tax is there on inherited assets in India, I assume people can inherit it, not sell the assets, even in India, use it as collateral on a loan and live off the loan in India as well. This must not be just a problem in the US.
Correct. The sort of chain and cycle can continue. Now, here's where wealth tax is a problem. Let's say I have 2 billion, right, in the stock. I don't actually have that value, right? I can take collaterals against it. But tomorrow that 2 billion, the company can crash and it can become 0. So if you're taxing me, for example, 2%, every year on that 2 billion. That is, for example, let's say 4 million every year. One is that 2 billion is a stock. It constantly keeps reducing. You're eroding wealth. Secondly, a lot of the times, the wealth that people hold, it's in the form of company, land holdings. It's already been taxed through income. You always pay tax on income, and then through your profits, that's how wealth accumulates.
Yes.
A crucial principle in economics is you never tax something twice.
Twice, yeah.
And you never tax it multiple times.
Yeah.
And
we don't know what that's like in India, though.
And how do you...
In India, you've seen like you're just paying tax in this giant circle. Sometimes like everything is taxed at every level.
The tax code is very complex, and GST, which is supposed to simplify it, didn't actually simplify it to that extent. But
anyways,
yeah, so...
you're not supposed to tax things twice, and it doesn't make sense for your wealth to be, constantly being taxed. And I can get on board with that. Now we move to the inheritance part of it.
Yeah.
Do you think that's different?
Yes. And I see the logic for it, and I don't mind it. There are different levels to which inheritance can be taxed.
Progressively, just like everything else is taxed. Everyone thinks, you'll see inheritance tax and you'll see middle class people worried about inheritance tax.
Firstly, inheritance tax needs to be really narrowly defined and has to be for the ultra
HNIs.
Exactly.
And progressively so.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I don't think the middle class or even the rising corporate class who doesn't have mass amounts of generational wealth needs to worry about it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
If it's implemented, I'd say, in the spirit of what it's intended for. It's not meant to tax the middle or the upper middle class.
Correct.
It's not meant to ruin their savings.
A lot of the sort of criticism even against the inheritance tax is it is really hard to collect. The ultra rich will find a way to sort of, they can afford great lawyers, they can wiggle their way out of paying these taxes, and there'll be people at the sort of lower rungs who will actually bear the brunt. And also that the administrative cost to actually implement this is not worth the revenue it will generate. Also, there's this whole thing about billionaire flight, which is that wealth is easier to move across countries. If you have a very high inheritance tax, billionaires will simply move their wealth offshore, which will, as a result of it, reduce the sort of taxation pool, because very few, a small percentage of India actually pays tax, and if a lot of billionaires move out, then people who actually pay a lot of tax will move out, which means the government will actually end up with less revenue, which means a lot of common people will have to pay more taxes to sort of fund the sort of same pool. So these are the sort of criticisms against an inheritance tax. India had a form of inheritance tax till about 1985. Okay. And it wasn't called an inheritance tax, but because of all of these reasons, it
like
was
death
actually...
tax? Like, was it called death
estate
tax?
tax, yeah.
Death tax?
Estate tax.
Estate tax.
And because all of these reasons, it was sort of removed. Yeah.
Was that kind of applied on everyone, or was that a narrowly defined estate tax? Like only properties over 10 crores or something like that?
No, it was narrowly defined.
It was narrowly
Yeah,
defined.
it-
It
it's
wasn't
always-
like
it's
someone
always-
inheriting a small
It's-
piece of land in a
No,
village is going to have to...
It's always narrowly defined.
It's always...
It's always narrowly defined.
Got it.
And when I talk about this whole debate about the sort of wealth tax and inheritance tax, and I've given shit to the left about it, you also have to see how it's sort of been leveraged by the right, especially in India. So in 2024, you had Sam Pitroda, who had sort of raised this, he's, I think, in charge of Overseas Congress. Why he gets to set the sort of Congress policy agenda here is another... it's emblematic of Congress's issues, but
Heads in the Ivy League universities there. And
not even that.
Not even that.
I mean, yeah. So, and in Congress's manifesto, they sort of had talks about
massive
redistribution,
wealth redistribution, scary words,
which was it could have meant a wealth tax, but didn't. And you had a prime minister who took that and in Parliament made really troubling comments about, mind my language, but Ghuspetias coming in, calling the sort of Muslim community infiltrators, and essentially painting this entire picture that, if the Congress comes in power, what they basically want is they will take away your Mangal Sutra, they'll take away your money, and they will give it to the sort of Muslim community, right? And that's the spin that was put on the entire sort of redistributive angle. There are sort of, problems on both sides. I do think inheritance tax, if narrowly defined, can work. I think wealth tax as a concept, how do you define the amount of wealth?
And it actually fights against some tax principles, like those base ones about not continuously taxing people on the same wealth every year. Like same wealth you're going to tax me on every year.
And you're taxing money you don't have.
I mean, that's its own set of problems. I mean, like in some weird way, people let you have money with it as collateral.
The government wants to take part in the upside, right?
But not risk on the downside.
But not on the downside, right? So you're making me pay a tax if I have built a 2 billion value company. But if tomorrow that falls from 2 billion to 0, are you giving me that tax back? Because I never had that money in the first place, right? It's an asset. And asset values fluctuate. And as an individual, I've built that asset, contributed to it, and I'm taking the sort of risk for it. And it totally disincentivizes it. A lot of economists basically talk about high inheritance taxes or examples of wealth tax in Europe. Europe is a terrible example. you look at what's happening in the UK. Startups are leaving. There's a mass exodus of
1,000 millionaires a year or something like that.
And as they leave, the sort of tax base shrinks, which means they have to further increase taxes on the sort of middle or lower income people. To sort of fund the same programs, and that cycle sort of continues. They are in a debt spiral. I don't know why Indian economists have this obsession with quoting, Norwegian economic policies. That's never going to work, right? I mean, we don't have 2 million people who are.
We have 2 million people at Dadar station right now.
Exactly, right? So. This whole looking at high taxation, this high tax regime as something to aspire for, is inaccurate. You look at the US, yes, there are severe problems with capitalism. And I think common sense solutions means enforcing existing tax laws, closing loopholes, ensuring there's greater antitrust enforcement,
Better
ensuring
competition measurements.
measurement,
Yeah, I think that's a big one.
preventing monopolies from forming, and certain progressive taxation is all good, but not to the levels. I mean, you have two models right now in the world. You have the US, which basically innovates for the rest of the world. It outsources all that innovation, and that's only because of their tax system. And you have Europe, which basically benefits from those innovations but can't innovate there because you just can't.
They don't foster innovation.
When you're paying such high taxes,
there's no room to wiggle room and experiment, I guess.
Yeah, no, and you have to move out. They all move to the US.
Or Dubai.
Yeah, and so if India is looking for a model, and then some people quote China, right? And I mean, China is
a different example. They're
China
communist.
is an authoritarian state, right? If you're okay giving away all of your liberties and having total state control over everything,
which, by the way, we are not yet. For those people, for some people who freak out already, you know, like there's a reason we're not China. There's a reason, like that you are where you are, that you can say what you can say, even if it's limited. It's not China yet. Relax.
Yes. So, but yeah, no. So I do feel like India needs to, especially India's left, needs to have more pragmatic policies. Approaches.
And we need to have them before the revolution. You know the revolution? Because the revolution will not be televised.
Yeah, Rohan was off camera really, threatened about the revolution. He was scared that they would come and basically he would be the first target, right?
Yeah, we're not the first. I would be like on the third or fourth rung of target lists. But just to bring it back, I mean, I'm joking about this revolution thing, but only a little. Because there have actually been cases of civil rebellions in recent times. I think the Arab Spring was one of those, moments that people talk about today. And you always think it can't happen where you live. You think it's, really chill. But one day I wonder, when you see so much inequality around you, when you see multi-crore apartments which people live in, where they make Swiggy orders and they receive them, and the bill, and the watchman receiving the parcel, the bill is on that parcel and it's 3,000 rupees. 3,000 rupees is like 1.5 months ration for their family of 4. Yeah. And you just ordered a croissant. Yeah, so, I joke about this whole revolution thing, but it is something that does actually cross my mind in a very self-preservation manner, where I imagine myself in a situation where things are getting worse and worse. I have a family to feed and I see people with crazy unchecked wealth.
Yeah.
And I believe to a point my life's going to change, and then one day you lose hope.
Yeah.
And we had cases like this of the Arab Spring, where one dude just set himself on fire because corruption and inequality had gotten so bad he couldn't think of another way to be heard, and he did that, and it sparked off a bloodbath.
Yeah.
And no one thinks it's going to happen to them. The people around the Arab Spring didn't think it was going to happen to them.
Yeah.
And I just want people to look at this, whatever they call this, enlightened altruism, all this horseshit terms, but it's you can look at making society better from a point of view that, hey, they are not just going to let you rampantly enjoy life more and more at their expense.
Yeah.
And you would be wise to make sure that everyone is doing better before that. Do you think that's possible in India, that we could actually have a revolution of sorts?
I think income and wealth inequality is one of the biggest problems of our time. There was this recent Oxfam study about how 10% of India today owns 77% of the country's wealth. That's startling, right? And this is not a problem just in India, it's a problem in the West as well. The impact or the effects of this is seen in the rising anti-minority sentiments, the rising anti-immigrant sentiments in the West, and the rise of the extreme right all around the world. And essentially, till the time people are fighting with each other, till they're blaming each other for their economic problems, you won't have a revolution, right? Because if I'm a Hindu and I think that it's the Muslim who's taking my job, if I'm a white person in the US who thinks it's a Mexican immigrant who's taking my job, and because of him I'm not getting healthcare, because of him I'm not earning a living wage, till the time we're fighting amongst each other, that's sort of what the sort of, let's say, the elite want, right? So I think till the time that's happening, there will not be a revolution. I think the correct type of politics on the left, which is why Mamdani was so great, is because of his incredible focus on affordability, on inequality, on income issues, on jobs, on inflation. It's about bringing people together, irrespective of class, religion, race, culture. It's what Bernie did. It's what labor movements that have been successful have done. And it's what all of these revolutions have had in common. It's that when you realize that religion doesn't matter when you and me are both don't have food to put on our table, right? And that's when a revolution occurs. I don't think we're sort of close to that yet.
That's actually a sad thing, maybe. Like, I don't mean to say that we want a revolution, but you actually want a situation where people are paying attention to the actual problem. Like, if people were maybe a little closer to blaming the powers that be, if there are any powers that be that are trying to keep people down, the closer we are to blaming them, the closer we'll be to revolution. But it's also the probably closer picture the public will have on what is actually going on.
The current system doesn't work. Okay, like that's for sure. Why we're seeing socialism, extreme left and extreme right, is because people know what's happening right now is not working. Capitalism in the last 20 years in its current form has failed. People are slipping back into poverty. People don't have healthcare. Costs are rising in health and education. Today's generation cannot buy a house.
Yeah, we just all have iPhones.
Yeah.
You know, somehow they figure out that everyone has iPhones but not good healthcare. And we look at that and think progress.
Correct. Yeah. To be honest, it is progress to some extent.
Yeah, it is.
But it's also an outcome of a very flawed system. And I think because people know the system doesn't work, it makes people sympathetic to someone coming and just taking a hammer and breaking it all. That's what Trump is doing, right? That's why Trump was re-elected. Because you had Kamala who was saying, I will do exactly what Biden did. That I wouldn't change anything at all. And you have Trump going, and he's a billionaire, but he's going to working class Americans and being like, I understand your pain. And I know where you're coming from. And I will fight for you.
I was reading today, 1 in 3 people in the US will get into medical debt, which means to pay for a child's root canal, they will have to take a loan.
Yeah. No, it's the system is broken. And the problem with the current establishment politicians is you're not acknowledging it enough. Yeah. Even if you look at in India what's happening, I mean, which opposition leader is actually going on every day talking about how expensive it has become, talking about the rising inequality, talking about all of these issues? The biggest changes that have happened, the farmer laws, right, which the government had to repeal, had nothing to do with the opposition. It was a people's movement. It was a revolution of some sort.
Yeah, it was. It felt like one.
But it should have been triggered by the opposition party. But they had absolutely no role. They were bystanders to all of it. So we are seeing, whether it be the CAA, where the government was forced to sort of take it back, whether it be the sort of farm laws, that when people come together, even a government as powerful as the Modi government is forced to sort of backtrack, which means that people do have power when they come together.
Yeah, not an authoritarian regime, I guess.
Yeah.
In China, there would be no backtrack.
Yeah.
For example.
Yeah. Yes.
For example.
We're not an authoritarian
we're not there yet.
regime.
It's like sometimes people go too crazy, like with it.
We're not there yet.
But should we not be concerned?
We should be concerned.
We should be concerned. Like, it's not like take the eye off the ball sort of situation.
Correct. Yes. But no revolution anytime soon. When I was in college, I was into activism and I saw the problems, but I didn't know enough about the solutions. And as I've grown up, I've started up 3 times. I've run multiple businesses. I've worked with people in the industry, and I've seen that a lot of those policies are actually not gonna work.
Yeah.
And proposals which sound really fun, like, oh, let's tax the rich 2 cents. You've got to look at the sort of practical aspects of it. And yeah, and that's what I'm trying to study right now. And yeah.
Super. Well, we actually hope you come back to India. Let you not be one of our brain drain. Brain drain, like this would be a case of brain drain where you go and try to help Mamdani set up his grocery stores.
No, I'm not interested in helping Mamdani set up his grocery stores. At all. I'm definitely...
Bro, we'll cut that out, huh, bro? He gives you that job, take that job, bro. That's a good job.
I'm definitely gonna definitely plan on coming back.
We'd like to have you back. We'd like to have more voices in Indian politics.
No, there's so much work to be done here. You're working in philanthropy, working in social impact. And this is even what I tell philanthropists that I've worked with. The biggest impact return for your buck is in India, because your $1 that you invest in India, even when it comes to funding a non-profit or in philanthropic money, has so much more impact than in the West. But having worked on the ground, both through my startups, but also in policy and politics, there's so much important work that needs to be done here. The economy in India is actually not doing as bad as the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And with everything that's happening there, I think we're going to see a reverse brain drain.
Okay.
I don't think we're going to see as much of a talent flight as we have in the past. There is racism in the US, which is increasing. I mean, if the second lady of the United States is not immune to racism, why would a random, immigrant studying there be? So I think all of those things play in.
Not immune from her own husband.
Correct. Yeah.
But so tough on him, dude. They were such a good couple though at a point. You remember when Trump was like a little people could still look at JD Vance and be like, yeah, he's a smart chap.
It's all politics. Yeah, it's all.
Now it's just like
cute photo ops. But I think people like me, Anish. I think it's really important that we have the responsibility. We're lucky. We're privileged to be able to get the opportunity to go to these universities. It's really important that we pay that back to our country. Because I'm a product of the Indian education system. I did my undergraduate right here. I've worked here. It's really important that if I've gotten this chance to study at Harvard on a full scholarship, that I come back and me and every young person that's watching, there's a lot of opportunity in India, but there's a lot of work to be done here as well.
And if you're abroad, build some of this Indian civic sense, shitting on that we get. Like, go do something nice uncharacteristically if you see someone with a smartphone out.
Yeah.
Because we need some videos going viral of us saving cats from trees or something like that.
Yeah,
because it's kind of embarrassing now. I think Indians are getting off on it. I noticed that Indians are getting off on just resharing videos of Indians abroad. And I feel like now the algorithms caught onto it in some weird way.
It's always a specific Indian though, right? It's always an Indian who is wealthy, who kind of doesn't hate his country, doesn't love his country, who associates more with the US than with India.
He thinks he's from Dubai. Number of Indians
exactly.
Like shit on India. They moved there 2 weeks ago. And now they're
That's exactly what happens, right? You're above this country and you're in the West and all of that. But having been at Harvard, I can tell you that some of the smartest people I've ever met is still Indians.
Yeah.
It's still people I've worked here who are doing incredible work in politics, policies, business.
Corporates. No-brainer.
Tremendous. So my outlook is positive. It's optimistic for India. If we can ensure basic human rights stay basic human rights, and our democratic institutions are protected, which right now they are not, I think we'll be fine.
Okay. That's a great note to end it on. Thank you, Nickil, for being here.
Thanks so much, Ron.
Nickil, I'm not very active on social media. He works behind the scenes,
correct.
I think.
Yes.
And
this is my first time not.
So we're going to get to see some of that. People who have known Nickil and perhaps not gotten to see him put his voice out there on social media, now you will get the chance. I'm very happy to have him on this show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm sure we'll have him back when he's here for his next vacation. We'll see what the updates are.
Yes.
If you can fly back safely.
Yes, hopefully.
And that's it, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. As always, this is the Overcorrection. I'm Rohan Paranjpe. Please subscribe to this channel, like this video, and I will see you next time.